Welcome everybody to Transfer Weekly, your newest podcast at F1 Feeder Series for keeping up to speed with all the transfers going on in Formula 2, Formula 3, FRECA, and beyond. We've got a lot of transfers to cover today, including one in hosting duties. Regular host Chris McCarthy is on holiday celebrating his birthday, for which we wish him all the best. And so I, F3 editor Michael McClure, am filling in for this episode. And joining me today to talk through all of this week's transfers are two experts on feeder series racing around the world. We've got FRECA, French F4, and Formula Winter Series editor Percy Wolff, and Super Formula Lights, Formula Regional Japan, and Japanese F4 editor Rene Oudman.
Welcome, mate. How you doing?
Good. How are you all?
Fine.
Yeah, really fine.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover, a lot of good news to look into this week. Before we begin this second episode, let's look back to a big piece of news from last week, which is that Arthur Leclerc, brother of F1 driver Charles, will be stepping up to F2 with DAMS. And while he's moving away from Prema, we've got another driver joining Prema, and that also happened last Monday. Frederik Vesti, who raced with ART the past 2 seasons, will be moving over, reuniting with the team with which he won the Formula Regional European Championship title in 2019. Rene, can you tell us all about Frederik Vesti and what this move means?
Well, obviously, it wasn't a big surprise for everyone who follows the feeder series that Frederik Vesti would move from ART to Prema, where obviously both seats were empty. As we've seen that Dennis Hauger is moving to MP and Jehan Daruvla is probably moving to MP Motorsports as well. Frederik Vesti moving to Prema, that's only one thing, and he wants to win the championship next year. He should win the championship. He's got 1 season of experience under his belt now. His first season was good. It was solid. He won a race in Baku. He had a few podium finishes. We obviously all know that there's a fine Austrian businessman called Torge Christian Wolff. Friends call him Toto, behind Vesti. So he's a Mercedes junior. I think Frederik Vesti would be one of the candidates to fight for the 2023 Formula 2 title. Having said that, it will be extremely important for him to fight off Ollie Behrman. So that will be the main challenge for him. Can he become the team leader at Prema? And I think he's really able to step up to this.
Absolutely. Well, we've talked about, championship winning drivers and those moving away from Prema and into this year's team's champion. One driver moving away from team's champions MP Motorsport and into Trident for next year is Clément Novalak, who's going to be racing and leading that effort at the Italian team in 2023. Percy, tell us what this means for Clem's career, reuniting with the team that he raced in Formula 3.
Yeah, so we've got the French-Swiss driver formerly racing under the British license, now on the French license. Clément Novalak joining Trident in F2 for what will be his sophomore year in his second season. It's fair to say his rookie season this year was quite underwhelming at the most. He was known to be Mr. Consistency in FIA F3 in 2021. He was clean. He was nearly all the time finishing the races in the points. He may not be the fastest driver, but he got 4 podiums. He finished P3 at the end with Trident, and he was a perfect team player, and he really helped the Italian squad to get the team's title for the first time. So we know this guy has talents. He showed us during his British F3 years and his FIA F3 campaigns. This year, with MP, nobody was expecting from Novalak to fight for the title as a rookie, but people knew he was a reliable driver that would always be there to score points, to score podiums, etc. But yeah, this season has gone pretty bad for him, especially in comparison with his champion teammate Felipe Drogovic. And moreover, most of the points he picked up were thanks to tire strategy gambles. So it should be really good for him to come back to Trident, to an environment where he's familiar with, where he used to perform. And I'm pretty sure he will feel at ease quickly. It's also a team where there will be less expectations as Trident finished 9th this year. But this year also showed that Richard Verschoor could shine with the Italian car, with the Italian package, with a win and a couple of podiums. So I think Verschoor this year could be a good example of what Novalak could achieve in 2023.
Yeah, for sure. A driver who'll be looking to make a big impact on the series in 2023. Another driver who's left MP Motorsport and will be stepping into Formula 2 for 2023 is Kush Maini, who'll be joining Campos Racing 5 years after his brother Arjun raced in the series last. Rene, what does this mean for Kush? Is it a step that he's ready to take, and what can we expect from him heading into this year?
Actually, it seems like a big step to go from your first full season of Formula 3, where he finished a low-key 14th, into Formula 2, which obviously it's a big step. But bear in mind that Kush has shown great pace in qualifying right away in the first round in Bahrain, although he got disqualified from that lap. But I guess there have been a lot of people who have been really stunned by the performances of Kush, and obviously he has been unlucky last season of the 2022 season. It already feels so far away. I'm talking about it like last season, but I think Kush is up for the task, although it's going to be a big step. Bear in mind that with Campos Racing, he will face Ralph Boschung, and Ralph Boschung has got like, what is it, guys? 702 years of Formula 2 experience right now. So there's a lot of data up for hands. Having said that, look, it's never easy. It's never easy. He's not like the raw talent like Isaac Hadjar or Ollie Behrman, but he didn't drive at all in 2021. So his performance is really good, and I really feel like he's undervalued. People don't really recognize how good he really is. It feels good to see the name of Maini again in Formula 2, especially after Ian left in a bit of a it didn't feel good. Look, Ian had several things going on politically which didn't support him. So it really feels good for the Maini family to be back in Formula 2. And I really think Kush, who was on the podium in Formula 3 in Hungary this year, scored 4 or 5 additional points finishes. It may seem early, but I really think he can do a solid job next year.
Well, Rene, you've talked about the potential that Kush Maini could show. And in that last session of testing last week in Abu Dhabi in Formula 2, Maini went fastest. And so did Vesti, topping session 2, the afternoon one. Percy, what do you think we can see from testing? Does it tell us anything about 2023? Can you recap what happened this past week in Abu Dhabi?
So, of course, I would love to be here and predicting the whole F2 standings for next year, but by interpreting the results of this testing. But I'm not going to learn you anything. It's impossible. Testing is testing. So even though we've got 3 full days of running, it's hard to draw any conclusions, especially between teams, as everybody run different programs at different times. The only conclusions we could be drawing would be between teammates, but still, it's to take with a grain of salt. And we usually see drivers changing between day 1, day 2, day 3, but this time we have got 10 of the 11 teams sticking with the 2 same drivers, the only exception being Motorsport Racing, who tested Berchol, Correa, and Villa Gomez. So it's pretty fair to say that at least 80% of the grid is already signed, but not yet announced. Art GP were officially the fastest, with reigning FIF3 champion Victor Martins being the fastest, nearly 0.2 quicker than his teammate Theo Pourchaire. So it's a really strong start for the Alpine Academy driver that could cause maybe struggles to his fellow countrymen next year. There was Jack Doohan at Virtuosi, who was P2, probably confirming he will be fighting at front. There was also Roy Nissany, Arthur Leclerc, Kush Maini, who have been some really great surprises, especially the Indian from Campos, nearly constantly being in front of his teammate Boschung. But, some drivers were probably running low fuel sometimes to impress some sponsors. Testing always works like that. So we can never know what happens behind the scenes. The only sure thing is that we already have 80% of the grid just by looking the test lineup.
Yeah. And obviously this testing lineup that you've mentioned has pretty well aligned with Tyler Foster's article on what the Formula 2 grid could look like in 2023. So far, we've had 8 driver confirmations, and all 8 of them were predicted correctly by Tyler. So do check out his reporting on what this 2023 grid might look like on f1feederseries.com. Well, pivoting over from Western Asia to Eastern Asia, we've obviously got a lot of news coming out of Japan this past week. namely that Toyota has signed several of their drivers for the 2023 season in Super Formula and other Japanese support series. Rene, you're our editor over in Japan. What does this tell us about what we can expect for 2023 and any big surprises coming out of the news?
Well, what we can expect is that Toyota just continues with their strongest lineups, keeping Ryo Hirakawa at Impul with Sekiguchi, keeping Ritomo Miyata at Toms, and obviously Kenta Yamashita with Kondo. The biggest surprise is obviously Kazuto Kotaka, who had signed for Kondo Racing. Kazuto Kotaka, for the ones who are not familiar with that name, is the Super Formula Lights champion, and he was always poised to get promotion into the Super Formula series. But there was well-known French guy called Théo Pourchaire looking out for that seat as well. As obviously Super Formula and Formula Nippon do have a history with foreign drivers. André Lotterer, Benoit Treluyer, Louis Duval, and recently Nick Cassidy and Sasha Fenestras. Some teams are always on the lookout to get a foreigner in the seat. And so Théo Pourchaire has been poised to drive the second Kondo car. He has been asked to do it. It's not sure why he turned it down, possibly because Alfa Romeo doesn't want him to be in Japan that often, because it would clash with certain Formula One races in which he would be the third driver for them. And so the Pourchaire rumors and the Pourchaire deal and everything is off, and he might just go back to Formula 2 again, which made room for Kotaka to step in. Otherwise, the Toyota roster is pretty similar to what we've known this year. Sho Tsuboi staying at Tsurumo with Sena Sakaguchi. The only to be announced is the 36 car of Toms, which was the drive of Giuliano Alessi. And Giuliano Alessi has had an awful season. He had a good first season in 2021, winning one race, which was shortened due to rain. But yeah, in fairness, it could be that Toyota will look for another foreigner for that 36 drive, because there are no foreigners now. Fenestras is left. It could even be that Fenestras takes up that place and skips the Super Formula races while there are Formula E races. It's been a weird few weeks in Japan, as you can hear, but Toyota has stuck to consistency, and it's Giuliano Alesi is still the number one driver to get that seat in the 36 car, but we'll see. We'll have to wait.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of big news coming out of Japan. And as we see drivers transferring into Japan and also out of Japan. So lots of movement around the world. Returning to Europe, we can look at the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, which has had some tests in the past couple of months, ever since their season wrapped up in Mugello a month ago. Percy, what can you tell us about these tests? We don't have too many announcements, but do they give any hints at where drivers might be driving next year?
Yeah, so F1, F2, F3 may have finished their seasons, but it's far from over in FRECA and in all nationals. F4 with plenty of testing currently going over until mid-December. We have talked last episode about the first FRECA driver signed for 2023, Andrea Chimiantonelli, the ADAC and Italian F4 champion. He's the only driver to have been announced officially, but he is also the one currently missing several precious weeks of testing as he is recovering from his wrist injury at the FIA Motorsport Games last month. So, yeah, he may be the only announced driver, but it looks quite obvious that some deals are pretty much done with the same drivers that keep on testing with the same teams week after week, track after track. For example, this week there was some testing at Barcelona with Dutchmen that could have a great year in FRECA, as Cassava Court with Van Amersfoort Racing and Laurens Van Heupen from ART topped the standings. There was also Rafael Camara for Prema. There was Tim Tramnitz for R-Race, Alessandro Giusti at G4, who all delivered some really interesting performances. So it's really nice to see the grid shaping up progressively with a mix of returning drivers and of new talents coming from F4 like Camara and Giusti. We also had at Barcelona some F4 testing with the first official Spanish F4 post-season session. There was the French kart driver Enzo Delini, who was really exciting with Campos, There was Kinu Alazari with MP Motorsport alongside Brazilian F4 champion Pedro Clerot. So yeah, that's why we love feeder series. In fact, there are always some talented drivers coming up the ranks every year, and it never stops.
Well, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention perhaps the biggest transfer news of all, as it's now official that after a stellar rookie season in Formula 2, Logan Sargeant will be going up to Formula 1 in 2023 with Williams Racing, becoming the first American driver on the grid in 8 years. It's been a great season from Logan, great to watch him over the past 6 years in Feeder Series, and of course, from all of us at F1 Feeder Series, a huge congratulations to Logan Sargeant on that accomplishment. And that's all we've got for today's show. Thank you to Rene and to Percy for joining us for this second episode of Transfer Weekly and sharing their knowledge and opinions with us. You can check out all their reporting on f1feederseries.com, including Percy's articles on what the 2023 FRECA and French F4 grids might look like. Shout out as always to Jim Kimberly for providing technical support and to our regular host Chris McCarthy for giving me the microphone for this episode. And a final thank you to you, our viewers and listeners, for sticking around. You make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, and join us again next Monday for episode 3 of Transfer Weekly.